Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 183 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary. I've got my co-host here, Byron. Byron, how are you today?
Gary, super excited. We have Gina Franssen on the show, Minnesota's first female black belt, and she does a lot for jiu-jitsu and help promoting it and helping the people that are doing jiu-jitsu. So a great interview with Gina today, and I'm just excited. I'm here again talking to my friend Gary, and we're always seem to be having a good time when that happens. So good stuff all around, my friend.
Yeah, definitely. Jokes and jokes is what we got here for you today.
Indeed, we'll at least try.
Well, yeah, we'll try. But hey, speaking of trying, you never want to try and miss an episode. So the easiest way not to miss an episode is to get onto our email list. We have a link to it on the show notes. Just put in a valid email address, and bada bing, boom, you will get a link to our show notes each and every week. So you'll never miss an episode. So check it out.
There we go. You don't want to miss that. We also would like to mention our audiobook, Your First Year of BJJ. If that is something that you find yourself in, if you are in that first year of jiu-jitsu, check out the audiobook. It is me talking to you about the common hurdles you might have to overcome, some of the obstacles that might be in your way during that first year to make that first year great. We want you to enjoy it. We want you to learn as much as you can during that first year and really get jiu-jitsu incorporated into your life for the long term. The book is $11.99. The money goes to help keep the show on the air. Just one of the couple of ways you get to support the show and help keep us doing what we're doing. And you get a cool audiobook. It's about 3 hours long. So check it out. There'll be a link to it in the show notes. Thanks for swinging by and checking that out, my friends. Gary, we are enjoying this nice quote music here. It's still a little new to the show, but we're trying it on, and it's fitting kind of like some nice rash guard, a little bit tight, but feels nice against the skin. So this quote music, Gary, wouldn't you describe it like a rash guard?
Yeah, definitely like a rash guard. Well, whatever you said. I'll go along with it.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Gary, the quote we have today is by a British author, A.C. Benson. And the quote is, "People seldom refuse help if one offers it in the right way." And I think the main chunk of the quote that is really talking to people who are trying to help others is the second half. You have to offer help in the correct way in order for that help to be received. And when you're offering your help, you clearly want to help somebody, whether you're teaching them jiu-jitsu or helping them at their job or, teaching a student something at school or anything really. If you offer it the wrong way, if you belittle them or make them feel like an idiot, they might refuse your help. And even if they don't, they probably won't pick it up and learn as well. So really, that communication skill is a pretty important thing for coaches and teachers to really get down. And people who want to help other people, you got to offer the help in the right way.
Yeah, especially like you said, if you're coaching somebody, and that's kind of what we're about here. We're about trying to get you better at jiu-jitsu, and it's we have to say it in the right way. We can't say, "Hey, you're having issues with your Kimura. You're horrible and you suck very badly." That's going to turn somebody off. They're not going to listen to it. It's we need to offer in the right way and help people out.
Yeah, you could say something like, "Your Kimura, it's close, but it looks like they're usually getting out of it. If you tighten it up here, it would be even better." You kind of open it up with a compliment, like, "Hey, it's a really good Kimura," and then you address the thing. Maybe your grip is not quite right; it's in the wrong spot, or you shouldn't be biting them at the same time. That really gets them. They kind of move a lot when that happens, or any sort of a detail like that. You kind of give them that actual criticism. And then you get in with like another positive thing, like, I know this will really work for you very well, and your Kimura is going to be a lot better. So that's kind of like a little sandwich that you make when trying to offer somebody some advice on the mat or really with anything. You start with that nice bread of a compliment, and then you end up with the meat and potatoes, as Gary says, of the sandwich.
Why are you going to put potatoes in the sandwich?
I don't know, Gary. I'm not very good at cooking sandwiches, I guess.
Well, we surely can tell.
No, then like the middle of it there, you that's where the actual feedback part about what they are going to actually need to change, and then you put another piece of bread on top of that, which is a very nice way to end it. So you're saying end it too also with a compliment, something to keep them going. So, yeah, like here would be another one. Gary, I noticed that your hair is looking great today. The only thing that you could maybe change a little bit is if you started to brush your teeth at least weekly. That being said, I know once you brush your teeth, you're going to have a great smile. That's kind of a sandwich towards Gary.
Byron?
What do you got, man?
Hey, I'm going to go brush my teeth. See, it worked. You gave me 2 pieces of bread and some meat and potatoes in the middle.
Yeah. It's weird when
you did a good job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Good job, Byron.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I guarantee you AC Benson would be proud of you.
If he was still around today, he'd be proud about our analysis of that quote. I'm sure of it.
How do you know he's not still around?
Because he died like 100 years ago.
Okay. Hey,
there we go.
Your point. Yep.
The odds are pretty slim.
Yep. Man, Byron, I kind of like the way you segued into that, but you could have explained a little bit earlier about, the untimely death of AC Benson. But I think your hair looks really good today.
Oh, so now really nice feedback, Gary.
Thank you.
I'll make note about telling you when the author of the quote died before we start, rolling on the podcast here.
See, I'm already using it.
Oh,
so
man.
Thank you, AC.
You don't really care about my hair?
Oh, I think your hair looks great. I can tell you combed it today.
And I cut it myself.
Yeah, good job.
All right, well, that was the quote. The good news is we have Gina Franssen to take care of the bulk of the show for us, so you can get rid of us for just a few minutes here. And here we go. Gina Franssen. He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
Ronda Rousey's mom taught him a few judo throws in exchange for some armbar tips. In the finals of his most recent tournament, he was stuck in a triangle. He managed to take a selfie and post it on Facebook before escaping. He can call an IBJJF referee anytime, day or night, to find out what condition his condition is in.
Dropped in to see what condition my condition was in.
What condition my condition was in.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast.
I pushed my soul.
Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Gina Franssen to the BJJ Break podcast. Gina, I've heard a lot about you. Talked with you just for a couple of minutes before the interview kicks off here. You already got me laughing, so I'm excited, Gina, to bring you on the show. Welcome to the podcast, Gina.
Thank you so much for having me.
Could you maybe introduce yourself? You have a couple of things that make you, I guess, a little unique in the jiu-jitsu world. Kind of introduce yourself to us and who you are, what you're doing, and where you're at.
Well, I'm a first-degree black belt under Professor Chris McCune, and I'm the owner and head instructor at X2 Fitness in Minneapolis. I've been training for 14 years, and I am Minnesota's first female black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Wow, that's quite an accomplishment. Have you always been training in Minnesota, or did you start somewhere else?
Nope, I've always been in Minnesota.
Okay, and how long have you been training?
14 years.
How was it like in the early days of training jiu-jitsu?
Well, there wasn't as many females, that's for sure. So, which is why I opened my gym so that ladies could have a little bit more of a female-focused place to train. But yeah, it was definitely interesting training back in the day. I think it built some character, but also it was definitely difficult and frustrating at times.
Yeah, I could see that being the case, and any time that women's jiu-jitsu really isn't established yet in a city or in a club, it's always I think, difficult for the first couple to kind of get going and mix in and have those experiences with a group of guys. So I know that I'm guessing that the women in your area there are grateful that you've paved the way and did that early on. Now you're running your own gym there?
I am, yeah.
And is it primarily female, or is it basically all female, or what's it like there?
Well, we actually just had our 5-year anniversary a couple weeks ago. So the first 3 years was female only, and then the past 2 years has been co-ed as well. So we decided to mix in the co-ed classes so that the guys could have an opportunity to learn from a female instructor and have an opportunity to train with more women as well.
And what was you kind of mentioned this a little bit already, but you started your own gym just to have that environment with females on the mat. What was the rest? Fill me in a little bit more on the thought process of starting your own gym back then, about 5 years ago.
Honestly, and I tell this to people when they ask me, about opening my gym, and oh, that must have been so awesome. And I had no interest in opening a gym. That was never in the cards for me. So after I had left the place where I was doing a women's program, 2 of my very close friends, I say strong-armed me into opening a gym. They say they just kind of prompted me, but I feel like they totally bullied me into doing it. So they went out and found a space, and knowing the control freak that I am, they told me they were going to be there and I could join them if I would like to, but they were going regardless. So honestly, I didn't want to open a gym, but I'm really glad that I did.
Is this your full-time job, or are you doing something else?
I do in-home training during the mornings, and then I teach classes also on the mornings. I'm not doing in-home training. So I have private clients, and then I also do private sessions for jiu-jitsu, and then I teach. I teach all the classes but Wednesday night. So it's pretty busy. And then, part-time house cat and run the errands, walk the dogs, all that stuff. So, yeah.
Gina, I don't know for sure why the mix of like the jiu-jitsu population is, I don't know if it's 80% or 90% guys, but I think part of that is that guys naturally will seek out, they see UFC, I want to do that, and they kind of seek that out at a higher ratio than women. What is your marketing idea when you were just a women's gym looking for other women to train jiu-jitsu? How would you find new women to come in and to train with?
It's just really word of mouth. I mean, I've had a lot of people ask me, especially like the male gym owners, how do you get more females on the mat? That's a really great question because I don't think that there's a way to market women. I mean, you could say, it's good for self-defense, which it is, but a lot of times the ladies don't want to come and roll around on the ground because maybe it simulates something that they've experienced in a not so positive fashion, or it looks like something that they don't want to ever have happen to them. So I think it just kind of depends on where the lady is in her life, as far as does she want to tackle that? Does she want to face certain things? And then there's just the women that just don't really care to train at all. And then there's women that just want to do it just because. So I don't really think there's a way to market to get more ladies to do it. I think it's just more of a word of mouth. And like I always tell them, I'm here. So when you're ready, come on in. I'm not going anywhere. And
you kind of have a unique coaching experience because I don't know. I've never heard of anybody having a women's only gym, an entire club or building for that. That's pretty impressive. And so you get women who just are not really exposed to grappling with guys, at least for the first several years of training. What was it like to kind of decide to bring in or allow to have guys come in and train there?
It's a mixed bag. I personally believe that everyone should train with everybody. I understand that some of the females are going to need to kind of baby step that, so they want to train with just ladies, and then eventually I do encourage them to train with the guys because I think it's important. So some of the ladies just jump right into the co-ed classes. Some of them, like I said, kind of make their way into there first, get comfortable with jiu-jitsu itself, and then they start to integrate the co-ed classes as well.
Are there, not all guys are created equal either as far as being able to train successfully with women. Are there like certain traits you look for in a guy that think that, yeah, he'll be a good one for her to start training with, and it will go smoothly if she pairs up with that guy for her first, she's been training for a little while, but only with women, and now this guy. What do you look for in a certain training partner like that?
Quite frankly, that they're not douchebags. So, I mean, let's just put that out there. Luckily, I mean, all the guys at my gym are awesome. So I'm very, very fortunate. I don't have anyone like that at my gym. But the guys that I usually start the ladies with are usually a little bit higher ranked, more patient. They have a dial as opposed to an on-off switch, right? So that they know how to kind of coach roll as opposed to, hey, we're just going to go head to head. A little bit more calm energy. But like I said, most of my guys are awesome. So I can pretty much pick almost anyone except for the brand new guys, of course, because they're still learning. They don't have that dial yet.
Yeah, that is kind of something that is oftentimes you have to kind of learn that. And my wife started training jiu-jitsu a little while ago, and I remember trying to get her paired up with people who I thought would be safe and kind of fun and not that. And basically, after a few days of like trying to pair up with certain people, I just said, hey, if they've got a color belt on, they're probably going to be fine. And most of the white belts are going to be good to roll with too, but you might run into a couple that are a little bit rougher on the edges. But and that's been pretty good for her, I think, as far as being able to find training partners that aren't me or paired up by me.
Exactly that. Yeah, it's difficult to train with a significant other. So especially like in the co-ed classes, I have a lot of couples. Depending upon the day, or like you can kind of see if people come in, they've had a bad day, or maybe they don't want to train with their significant other. I try not to pair them together for the most part, because you get to see each other at home. So let's have other training partners while we're here. Open mat, you guys want to go for it. But yeah.
Yeah. And I guess another positive aspect of that is I might pair up with this guy, she might pair up with this other person, but we remember the technique slightly different, or maybe we discovered a small detail, and when you get home you could share that, opposed to just with each other. You get that same kind of a shared experience where you didn't figure out this tiny detail that you could share later on. I do see advantages of that, but I hadn't really thought about that. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. What got you started in martial arts?
I like to joke that I was aggressive and weight conscious, so that I used to like to get into fights quite a bit, to be honest. I needed a place to put my angst, which also is a good thing to have when you're a fighter, but unfortunately it can get in the way. So I decided at 29 to start boxing. I'm 47 now, so kind of got a late start. So I started with Western style boxing, and it was a very good outlet for me to be physical with somebody else and not go to jail. So I started with that. And then when I was working towards my pro career in boxing, I got in a car accident, so I couldn't box anymore. And I got into jiu-jitsu for unfortunate reasons, aside from my car accident. But so I haven't been doing martial arts my whole life per se, but once I started it, I was kind of in it to win it.
So your boxing was kind of ended by a car accident. How much boxing experience did you get?
Let's see. I trained for 18 fights. I only had 6 fights because 12 canceled on me. Because back in the day, there wasn't as many females. I mean, now I'm sure it would be awesome. There'd be tons of fights. But so I had 6 amateur fights, and I was training for my first pro fight.
Wow, and that was all stopped with a untimely. I don't know if there's ever a timely car accident, but it kind of put an end to that. Maybe I'm always interested in the different cultures of martial arts and sports. What was the boxing scene like for women back then compared to, I guess, the jiu-jitsu scene?
I mean, it was pretty similar. It was very sparse. you didn't have as many opponents as you would now per se. I think I fought the same girl 3 times because there just wasn't as many ladies fighting. So I'm going to say it was pretty similar to when I started jiu-jitsu, when there was only a few women, or even a few years ago or 5 years ago, however many, when you'd go to a tournament and there's 5 girls and you have to lump them all together, like the smaller tournaments especially. So it was pretty similar. You just didn't really have a lot of opponents to pick from.
And what was the training like? What as far as being a female boxer training and compared to a female jiu-jitsu student?
Well, I think I've taken a lot of my fight training from boxing and incorporated that same type of mental attitude and intensity into it. I mean, if you're competing, you have to train at a certain level, right? So since I used to fight in Western style boxing, my coach had us train pretty hard, and I do miss that, but now I'm 47 and that's not going to happen. So I don't have the time or energy to train, 4 hours a day or whatever. It was a lot of training, a lot of sparring, a lot of cardio, sprint work, plyos. I mean, it was pretty crazy.
Wow. And I imagine kind of the same way it was when you started jiu-jitsu, it was mostly training with guys as far as your sparring partners would go?
Yep. I think I was one of 2 women in the class, if I remember correctly. Sometimes I was the only one, but...
That's how it is, I guess, back then. And probably still, a lot now. If you walk into a boxing gym as a woman, you probably won't see a lot of other ones unless it's, some place like the place that you've created there that has, catered to, women and getting them into jiu-jitsu. So, I'm sure there are places similar like that in boxing, but the average gym, if you go in there, you're going to have to learn how to, get used to training with those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I do think it's very telling of the atmosphere of the gym if there's a strong female presence. And I've been to a lot of different gyms with a lot of different black belt owners, male black belt owners, who have been doing a fantastic job. They have a huge, huge female presence there. And I really think that speaks volumes about the teaching style and the training partners and the facility itself. So that's when my female students go to, vacation or whatever, and they ask for gym recommendations. If I don't have any, I typically will say, ask about the female presence at the gym.
That's a really neat tip as far as trying to kind of get a gauge on the culture there. If the gym's been there for 3 years or 5 years, and you call and you're trying to ask about what time the schedule is, and are there any women that train there, and they say no, well, it doesn't mean that it's a bad gym, but it might give you some red flags as far as maybe the culture there may not be real supportive. Because undoubtedly, in the course of several years, women have came and gone and checked out the gym and determined that it wasn't for them. But that I've never thought about that as far as when you're on vacation trying to find a place to train.
It does help, and like you said too, it's not always. It doesn't always mean that that's a bad gym. I've gone to gyms where there aren't any females, and I've had a fantastic time, and my students have as well. But it is something that I like to keep in mind, because if there's only one woman, or there's a few gyms that I go to when I travel regularly, and there's at least 10 women on the mat at every time. So that's, it's fantastic because it speaks volumes for how they treat females there, but also I have female training partners to work with, which is always a bonus. I love my male training partners, but it's always a bonus to have a female training partner.
Gina, we've talked a little bit about your past and kind of starting the gym. I still want to know, could you describe your style of jiu-jitsu, kind of the game you like to play?
Unfortunately, and fortunately, I suppose, it's changed over time as far as not just with how jiu-jitsu has evolved, but how injuries happen. And I've had 6 surgeries in 2 years, and getting older. I actually listened to your podcast about aging in jiu-jitsu, and I was nodding my head the entire time listening to it. So I used to be more of a open guard player. And then I decided I should probably get off my back because that's really not a great place for a small female to be. But I definitely, with injuries and aging and things, I don't get to do as much. I love X guard. I don't really use it as often anymore. So I not really sure how I could describe my style of jiu-jitsu. I would like to think for 115.5 pounds that I play a pressure game, but I suppose that depends on who I'm on top of, right? I try to stay on top. I try to use speed when I can. But, we all have strengths that we rely on that we should actually wait until it's a desperate moment, like speed, flexibility, power, all those things where we get too reliant on that. So I try to tame down the speed. I'm not as flexible anymore, but I'm happy to be on the mat at this point. So I guess I don't really know what my style is. I don't sit and think about that. I suppose I could ask people that I train with and they could tell me what it is, but I think it's just changed so much over the past probably 5 years that I don't even know what it is anymore. I just train until I hurt, and then I move on. So
you mentioned you like pressure. What's your favorite spot to apply a lot of pressure from?
Passing.
During the pass, how do you get to top position? Are you wrestling for that, or are you getting a sweep, or how do you set that up?
I typically will start, like when we first start, I'll typically stand because I don't want to play seated. I don't really care for that so much because I'm too small for that against the people I train with. So I try to do a lot of standing passes. If inevitably, when I get put on my back, I'll go for sweeps to get on top.
So you kind of mentioned you don't prefer to be on your back, especially when I would imagine when it's more competitive and you're not just kind of out there having fun. But do you have a favorite guard that or kind of a go-to guard that you get your sweeps from, or is it just whatever's in front of you that is available?
I'm going to say it's whatever's available. Like I said, it used to be X guard, and I know my little body can't handle that one, but sometimes I'll forget and go for it because I used to train it quite a bit. I love open guard. I think just because I'm dealing with a lot of bigger opponents. So having closed guard for me sometimes doesn't really pan out very well.
Gina, you've had countless women come through your gym and this is their first day of training. What do you stress to them on their first day as far as maybe any techniques, or are they just into the normal class, or what to expect as far as their jiu-jitsu goes during their first day or first week or so?
Well, it depends on if they're coming to the fundamentals class or the regular class. I would typically request that they do the fundamentals, but sometimes that doesn't quite work out that way. I like to stress to them to be patient, to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable, to learn to embrace that spatial awareness of someone's in your space, and that's okay. Because as women, we get so worried about, someone's in my space, or I'm going to keep a distance. And jiu-jitsu is not that. Jiu-jitsu is just, you're right on top of each other, and that's just the way it works. But as far as self-defense wise, I mean, you should get used to that, in case something were to happen. So that's kind of my big stressor for the females when they first start, to just be patient with yourself. It's your first day or your first week. It's not going to be perfect. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And also to just get used to using your body, being comfortable with your body, being comfortable with that lack of space with somebody else. So that's typically what I focus on at first.
And those can be some pretty big hurdles that you could be comfortable with the space, you kind of get that, yeah, okay, I'll try. And it feels good, you're used to it. And then one day, you get a little claustrophobic and you experience a really heavy mount or something like that. And it's like, man, I thought it was comfortable, but now that's not quite where I thought it would be. So that's very good advice. And it's not, you didn't say is how to do a takedown or how to do a guard pass. It was more about getting them adjusted to what they're getting into.
Absolutely. You can get to the fancy stuff later. It's more of a being comfortable, being uncomfortable. We can learn all the takedowns and the guard passes and all the, flying triangles and all that stuff that people are like, ooh, that's really cool. But if you aren't comfortable being on the mat and you aren't comfortable with any type of fundamental movements, you don't get to do the fun stuff. You don't get to do the fancy stuff.
Gina, you're based out of Minnesota, but you do a lot of traveling and teach seminars. Tell us a little bit about the seminars you've done.
Most of the seminars that I do are for nonprofit organizations, Mission 22 and We Defy, also Girls and Geese. I travel, I donate my time so that the seminars can bring awareness to specific topics. Like Mission 22 is for bringing awareness for veteran suicide. We Defy Foundation is kind of helping out the combat veterans through jiu-jitsu.
So that's cool. You're active with some different seminars and helping some people out. So what would be a good way for somebody to kind of keep up with that and see if you're going to be doing a seminar near them?
Actually, I'm pretty heavy on Facebook. I hate to admit that, but you can follow me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well, except Instagram is more my clean social media. Facebook is the uncensored. This is what you get. This is how I talk. This is how I teach. So you can either one. I post my seminars and stuff on Facebook more than I do Instagram, but you can also go to, Mission 22 or We Defy. You can go to their websites. I believe that they advertise their seminars and things like that too. So,
anything on the coming up on the calendar?
Not with those organizations. I have some just self-defense seminars I'm doing around the cities in the next couple of months, and I think probably in the late summer, early fall, I'll be traveling again. It's just kind of nice to have a break from traveling.
Yeah, I could understand that. Gina, I've got a couple questions for you about helping kind of the newer students. If somebody is going to do their first tournament, what advice would you have for them?
Train. Show up to class, right? Do what your coach tells you to do. But have fun too. Don't take it so seriously. I think too many people get really, grr about it, especially their first tournament. Yes, you need to take it seriously. You have to take your training seriously. But if you get too heady about it, you're going to get in your own way. So I would say do the training, put in the time on the mat, off the mat, do your road work, do your whatever you do outside, kettlebells or whatever it is that you do outside of the gym or outside of jiu-jitsu, but have a good time. You're there for the experience. Yes, getting a medal is fantastic, but I can guarantee you that as long as you try your best, your coach will be happy with you.
Yeah, and if your coach is not happy with you, even though you tried your best, you probably have the wrong coach.
Yes.
Yeah, it's. I'm always proud of students if they and vast majority try very hard, and that's the thing. You may not get your game even going, but if you go out there and try and fight hard and smart and kind of if you can get your game plan going, that's great. But somebody who is upset with your performance other than yourself, that's probably not helping you get any better.
No, but you also don't want somebody that's going to blow smoke up your ass.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
So
that is
true.
I
mean, yes, you want someone that's going to be honest and be like, I typically will wait till the next day or 2 days after to critique my students' match because they don't need to hear it right now.
Yeah.
Win or lose. Let's just move on with the day. We'll celebrate or we'll, cry our guts out or whatever it is that you need to do. If you win, you lose. And then we'll recap. Then we'll look at your video. Then we'll clean things up. But nobody's going to hear anything that day.
You've seen a lot of students come in, and a lot of them hopefully stay, and some of them kind of wash out and don't make it. What are some traits that you have identified in students that make you think that they're going to stick with it and pick this up?
Honestly, I think it has a lot to do with the coach. I mean, how much time do you put into your student? How much, and not just physical, but mental. Do you get frustrated with your student easily? I've had some students where I'm usually pretty correct when they come in that I'm like, they're not going to make it, or, oh, they're going to make it. I've had a couple students completely prove me wrong. So, and they're purple belts now, which is awesome. But I think it depends on not only the student willing to put the work in, but also the coach willing to, time and time again have to repeat themselves and put in that extra effort to talk about whatever it is that's affecting the student, whether it's the technique or maybe there's something going on outside the gym. So, I mean, I don't know if that was a long-winded answer to your question. But...
No, that was good, and it puts a lot of the responsibility on the coach for having that connection with them. We could also say part of it's the team. Not every, if you walk into a gym and there's 50 students in there, you're probably going to get a lot of training from your teammates, and a lot of those relationships are going to be built with teammates. Your coach may be a fairly busy person, and hopefully they learn your name quickly, but getting a couple of good friends in there that kind of take you under the wing could be a big deal as well.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of having my students that have been there for a while make sure that they grab the new student. It's their first day, and you say, new partner. They don't know anybody. So why would you expect them to come up to you? So the people that have been there for a long time should go and grab that new person. Oh, hey, let's partner up, or, oh, what's your name? Great to meet you. Let's train. Don't leave it to that person who's brand new to start to make those connections. That's your job. That's your job as a team member.
In the worst case scenario, partner up with somebody different, and the student's a little shy and they're kind of waiting around and and they end up with the person nobody else wants to roll with. You get that guy, and that's who they hit. Because they were too shy to grab any random person, and they didn't really know how the process works. So, opposed to pairing up with a nice person or an experienced person, they get the person that nobody else wanted to train with, and then they get that terrible experience that day. So that's like the worst case. What advice do you have for the student who's busy? Like they could train 1 or 2 times a week. Any advice for that person?
I do, actually. I'm glad you asked that because I have several students like that. I've had students that were, in it to win it. They're training 6 days a week, and now they're in school full time. They work full time. They bought a house. Life happens, right? So I'm a big believer in adjusting your training to what's going on in your life. We all can't be in there 6 days a week. I mean, even I can't train 5 days a week. I maybe train 2 or 3 days a week because I'm running the gym, I'm teaching, I'm doing whatever. So I think it's important to adjust your mindset and your training to where your lifestyle is. Now that doesn't mean that, I'm so busy, I'm so tired, I can't go train today. I'm not saying that people should just blow it off, but don't be so hard on yourself because, I used to train 6 days. Now I'm only training 2. Well, when you're there, make good use of your time. Are you for open mat? Are you sitting around shooting the shit, or are you drilling? Are you rolling? Are you asking questions? Are you actually putting in the time when you're there? Just because you're there doesn't mean you're using the time.
Yeah, that is good advice. Make the most of it when you're there, especially on that short schedule. And if you can make it in for an hour and a half once a week, make that hour and a half count for 2 hours. You see people kind of talking and hanging out. It's fine to socialize and have fun, but you should be working that sweat up and be one of the hardest working people in there if you're just able to make it once or twice a week.
Absolutely. And even if you're not learning new techniques, drill the fundamentals. If I have 10 minutes, I will drill, hip escape from mount at my level. Come on. People are like, what are you doing? Because it's fundamental. It's movement. I still need to do that. I don't need to be doing fancy stuff all the time. I mean, neither do the students. Something's better than nothing.
Yeah, that is good advice, and to hear that from you, because it's kind of you see students pair up and I got this down. I know how to hip escape, and they kind of peter out, and they don't really do very many of them. But hey, she's still doing these, and if she's got a free few minutes to get a few of these drills done, she's going to do them. So definitely look up to you for that. Do you have any sponsors or anybody helping you out along the way?
Well, everyone helps me out, right? I mean, nobody does it alone.
That's true.
I'm very fortunate, and I'm very honored to be sponsored by New Defion and also by Sholarol. Two
great companies that are supporting you there. We mentioned Facebook and Instagram. I'll put those on the show notes as links. Any other websites that we can go visit to find out more about you?
Well, my gym website's always good, right?
Yeah.
X2FitnessMPLS.com.
Okay, I forgot to ask this at the beginning. X2, what does that stand for something, and if so, what?
X2, the female chromosome.
Oh, okay. See, I'm not...
That's some slick shit, huh?
There we go, and that makes sense instantly. There we go. Learn something every day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to save me from any more embarrassment as far as asking questions I should probably figure out on my own, Gina, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I've had a blast having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'd like to thank Gina Franssen for coming on the show today, taking some time out of her day to talk to us and our listeners. You know, she's definitely passionate about jiu-jitsu. Check her out her Facebook page, but also she's very passionate about Mission 22. We've talked about Mission 22 numerous times on the show, so definitely check out Mission 22 there also.
Yeah, and if she's doing a Mission 22 seminar, that is definitely something you should attend. Great cause, and you get to learn some jiu-jitsu.
You know, one thing we've been working on lately is really trying to up our presence in social media. A lot of people before said we were probably a 2 or 3 stripe blue belt in social media, but I think we've, definitely progressed and, maybe up to a purple belt by now. So definitely check out BJJ Brick on social media. We have all of our podcasts on there. We have a ton of reviews on DVDs on YouTube. So definitely, if you're thinking about buying one, check out our reviews, or actually Byron's reviews. He's actually even got me to buy one. So it's always good to hear about them before you buy it. So we've got a bunch of them on there. So definitely check it out.
All right, Gary. YouTube is definitely our fastest growing social media outlet, and Facebook is an easy way to get a hold of us.
Yeah. Byron, how fast is it growing?
Like a tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I just wanted to see if you had the numbers.
Kind of visualize it for you there.
Yep. Yeah. We got the roots under the ground, and the tree is above the ground.
We have a couple of videos that are categorized under the humorous category for jiu-jitsu. And those actually are doing pretty well, and those, I think, drive a lot of traffic and new subscribers. But, yeah.
Byron,
people are always enjoying a good laugh.
Is the Hitler one still on there? I remember that was one of the very first ones you put on there.
Yeah, it sounds weird just to ask about a Hitler jiu-jitsu video. There's a video of Hitler yelling and screaming and ranting, and the subtitles are about him being upset that he just learned that he is not any good at jiu-jitsu. And he didn't know this because everybody pretended that he was good because they were afraid of him. So, kind of making fun of him on that one. Yes, that one is still up, Gary.
I kind of like the choke, the Hitler, what was it, the head shake?
Something like that.
Yeah, that was always good, too.
There we go. So if you want that to make more sense, check out our YouTube channel, or if you probably Google or YouTube search for BJJ and Hitler, it probably will pop up pretty high on that search list. But a little weird, but we're poking fun of a bad person. So, well, with that being said, now it is time for the Referee Corner with David Silver Fox Karchmer. The Silver Fox is a BJJ black belt that has refereed over 3,000 matches, gi and no gi, kids and adult, from white belt to black. And now he answers your questions. David, we have a question in for you. Why does a referee sometimes pull or alter the position of the gi during a match?
Well, both competitors have to follow a very uniform specifications as far as their kimonos. So, and that goes to the type of material and the size and so forth, making sure that they both have a top, a bottom, and a belt. So having this type of set and fair uniform that they're wearing, there are times during, the course of dynamic grappling where you're going to find that there are disadvantages for one competitor or the other based on how the gi is altered, or becomes disheveled. One example I might give is sometimes the pant leg gets rolled all the way up above the knee, and that would obviously limit any kind of grip for that competitor on his opponent from the knee down to the foot. So very often you'll see the ref come over, he'll grab the pant from above the knee and he'll pull it all the way down, again, giving that competitor the opportunity to have the same grips that his opponent has. So it's really just about maintaining fairness, that all the series of grips that are available for the gi, and you think of things like the bottom of the pants, the end of the sleeves, of course the collar and the belt, and then everything in between, really. You just want to make sure that it's fair and on an equal playing field for both competitors.
Maybe kind of a weird follow-up question. So is it not legal for me to, if I'm grappling and we're going, and I just reach down and I pull my pant leg up higher on my thigh, and it makes my sleeve shorter, or my pant leg shorter, and it kind of stays that way? Is there a rule against that or about that, or would you just pull that back down?
Yeah, I don't know that it's in writing, but I think it does speak to fair play. I think something more common, Byron, would be, and you'll see guys do this from the stand-up perspective, they'll want to make their kimono sleeves as short as possible. So you can kind of, with your hand, you can kind of throw your hands out so it shortens the sleeve above the wrists. That's a very common starting position, certainly for judo as well as for jiu-jitsu stand-up. But what would be incorrect would be for you to grab your sleeve with the opposite hand and pull it up, much like you would, if you were wearing a shirt or a jacket and you wanted to roll the sleeves up. You wouldn't do it manually, but if you can kind of do it with a flick of your wrists and that's considered part of fair play. So there's some distinctions there. And to your point, no, you wouldn't literally grab the end of your pant leg and pull it up over your knee. That would be something that was frowned upon, and you'd probably be issued a penalty. Okay.
All kinds of crazy stuff that pops up on the mat sometimes, and with your experience, you're going to issue them a penalty. I mean, you know what to do with it. It's may not have happened, but you've dealt with things that are kind of strange before. So,
well, yeah, I mean, and that's what's kind of interesting about things that aren't in the written rule book. If they're not in there, then it's hard for people to argue that what you've done is the wrong thing. So there is some comfort to that.
This has been the Referee Corner with David Silverfox Karchmer. If you have a question for the Referee Corner, send it to bjjbrick@gmail.com. And of course, go to thegrapplingreferee.com for great articles, videos, and podcast interviews by David Silverfox Karchmer. If you want to support the podcast, though, we have a little page on Patreon for our podcast. If you think you want to pitch in $1 or $2 every episode, we would definitely appreciate that a ton. As mentioned earlier, way less than 1% of the audience is participating on Patreon. So every person on there is super important to us, and it really means a lot to us. And actually, we've talked about it a couple times before, but we had been like a little bit of a cyber attack against us. And really the Patreon supporters, the money that they had given us was the solution to that problem. I mean, that problem was fixed by paying the host some money to run some scans and clean everything up. And without that, we may not be here today. And so big thank you for the small handful of super supporters of the show that are on Patreon. And you get a free gi patch, or not a free gi, but you get a gi patch sent to you in the mail after you've kind of covered those costs at the end of the month usually. So yeah, a lot going on there, but check out patreon.com and check out the link in the show notes.
Yep, we'd love to thank those Patreon supporters. Like Byron said, without their help, there was no way we could tap out those cyber attackers. So those cyber attackers, they got put to sleep, and now we're back on the air. Hey, also, make sure you tell your friends about us. The best form of flattery we can get, besides telling Byron his hair looks great, is tell your friends about the podcast. We definitely know if you're listening to it, probably the majority of your friends also like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So let everybody know about us, and we really appreciate it.
Gary, it's time for the article of the week. Drilling, how to get the most out of it. Gary, this is another great one that we had our friend Joe Thomas wrote this one and submitted it to bjbrick.com. Let's get Joe on the line here. Joe, how
Byron,
you doing? You go ahead,
Byron, I have a problem.
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great, but I'm kind of mad at Byron. He said, we have our friend Joe. Joe is actually now part of the BJJ Brick podcast. He's one of our co-hosts. He's been on here so much, Byron. So
excellent.
I don't want you to make that mistake again, and so I expect you to get it right next time, sir.
I will try to do the best. I have a feeling we'll be recording a couple of these together because this is kind of drilling here is a series of 3. How to get the most out of your drilling is the first one, and you can go check them all out now on the website, or just wait for the next few weeks to unroll, and we'll talk about them. So, Joe, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Doing really good. How about you guys?
We're doing great, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on here and talk about your article.
I look forward to being on you guys' show.
How did you think of, this article, like coming up with drilling? How important is drilling to you?
To me, it's pretty important. I try and put in at least every rep the instructor asks for when we're drilling, and a few extras if I can. I know that some guys, they get to purple belt and beyond, and they find less value in it, and that's okay for them. But for me, it's still a pretty big part of my training. So,
I'm kind of like you, Joe. I was kind of the other way. I don't think I drilled enough earlier in my career, and now I find myself drilling more, and I do get more out of it. It helps me with my retention, but it also helps me, I guess, keep my body healthy too. I'll spend a little more time drilling versus live rolling, and it allows me to recover and still get the moves down, and the muscle memory, which just helps me hit them in a match when I need to.
Old guy problems.
Hashtag old guy problems. Yep.
Yeah. I think you look at what's in the article, and I think most guys figure this out organically as they go through their jiu-jitsu journey. But if I can help guys in their first couple of months figure some of this out and save them a year and a half or 3 years of trial and error, is why I wrote the article, really.
One of the first points you make on here is it's important to ask good questions. Make sure you're doing the drill correctly. You don't want to drill bad technique.
Exactly, and that's probably really pertinent for the guys that are 6 weeks in or 3 months in their training. And I know it can be intimidating, or you don't want to look like you're the slowest guy in the class and not getting it. But, man, if you can get the details right the first time, you'll be miles and miles ahead, I think. And I think asking your training partners for feedback is a good part of that. Ask them if the grip feels right, if it feels tight. When you're drilling a choke or something and you don't feel like you're quite getting it, they might have an answer for you. So just go ahead and ask.
Yes, definitely. You were talking about, don't drill bad technique. And one thing that always, I guess one of my pet peeves is I see people just trying to rip off as many repetitions as possible with really bad form. If your instructor says, hey, do 20 of these, and I just see people ripping through 20 just as fast as they can with terrible form, that's not going to help you out. It's just you're going to learn to do the technique terribly. And it's not going to help you when you're live rolling and you try to throw up that move and you end up getting passed. So definitely don't drill bad technique.
Right. The next 2 points I kind of feel they go hand in hand. The use proper positional fundamentals when you're setting up the move, and make sure you finish the move. I know I've heard guys comment that maybe something along the lines of, I like X guard. I feel I know some sweeps from there, but I can't never set them up when I'm live rolling. And I have a feeling that it's because you see guys drill, you lay on your back, the guy stands over you, you put your X guard hooks in, and then you do the technique. And you're not really paying attention to how to get there. You're not keeping your partner's posture broken down with a good collar or sleeve grip or anything. So I think it's important to get the fundamentals of the position right. And then I think it's really important to finish the move. If you're drilling a pass to side control, I think it's really important that you settle into a good solid side control. Because if you're doing this live rolling and say you sweep your partner, and as soon as his back hits the mat, he's going to be coming back at you like a wounded cougar. He's not just going to lay there and let you take the time getting into side control.
we hear the wounded cougar again. That's my favorite there. You've been listening to us a little too much, Joe.
Yeah, that was a big thing back in the day when you guys first started.
Yeah, Byron still makes fun of me with my wounded cougar jokes.
Indeed. That did distract me sufficiently enough. We just covered.
We're on experiment. Pay attention to detail.
Yeah, that's key. I mean, if you want to fool around with a technique, you're not going to have a lot of time live rolling. You know, you look at, in the article, I used the example of the scissor sweep and how many different variations of the grips you can have. You can have a higher on the collar, lower. You can grip the sleeve at the wrist or at the elbow. You know, and if you do 20 reps, you can try 20 different things. But if you're trying to figure these things out while you're live rolling, I don't know about you guys, but I might only get to the scissor sweep once or twice in a 5-minute round, and that's not very much time to experiment with those things.
Yeah, another part, I like about where you talk about experiment is sometimes we're trying to do a move that's totally unfamiliar to us, and we're working on it. And let's say I'm into my second or third rep, I do the first two okay, but that third one is nowhere near. I end up in the wrong spot. I roll the wrong way, and I see people just quit at that point. What I always try to do, because that's exactly what's going to happen when I'm rolling. I'm trying that move against you. You move the way you're supposed to, not the way we're drilling, or something changes and I go the wrong way. I always tell people, don't just quit right there. See what moves you can hit. Is there an arm lying around? Is his neck available? If anything's available, just grab it, because nothing is ever perfect when we're rolling. We're going to have to experiment. We're going to have to just take what's available to us. So I do like that point you made there, Joe.
Always looking for that plan B.
Yep, definitely.
Another thing that you're talking about here is to think about defense and counters. So this goes great if you're let's say just drilling arm bars. If you're the person getting arm barred, think about what you would do to get out of these situations. That way you're not just mindlessly being a dummy for half of the drilling time.
Yeah, take advantage of every minute you got on the mats, right?
That is true, definitely. And yeah, I mean, I like that. After going through all these, that's the one that sticks out most to me. Think about your defense and counters, and I look at a drill. A drill should have both, offense and defense on it. Somebody should be working offense, somebody should be working the defense to that. You have to think about it, and why me just lay on the ground while you're working your arm bars? Let's make it. As you just said there, Joe. Let's get the most out of our time. We don't have 24/7 to train, and I know both Joe, you, and myself, we're very busy, and Byron's not too busy. He doesn't really have anything going on, but the rest of us do. So we need to get the most out of our mat time.
Roger that.
Roger that. Like an example of a great drill that I really like is. I have mount on Joe. I swing my leg over for an arm bar. Joe rolls up. I end up transitioning to a triangle now that he's in my guard. He does a defense to the triangle, passes my guard, gets mount. Then he does the same thing I just did to him. He does the arm bar. I get up, he triangles, and then it's like circular, and we're both working all the time. And that's a great use of everyone's time. It's a great use of trying to add flow to people's jiu-jitsu and make it a little more smooth. The last thing you have on here is a point about providing feedback to your training partner. And that's a big one. You learn a ton from your training partners, and you've got to give them that feedback as well as be able to receive that feedback.
I don't presume to be qualified enough in class to be given a lot of advice, but I try and find something that my training partner did good and reinforce that. Maybe they don't even realize that they're getting a really good grip, or that their leverage felt really strong. And so I try and find something that I can tell them that they can put that in the back of their mind, that that's a good thing for them, and keep working on it.
And as Joe concludes, train hard, train smart, get better. That's what we all want to do.
Joe, thank you for stopping by. We'll look forward to talking to you about the next article here in a little bit.
Great, Byron. Great, Gary. Talk to you next time.
Thank you, sir.
Great news, Gary.
What would be the great news, Byron?
News. You have an audiobook coming out, my man.
No, Byron. I cannot have an audiobook coming out.
Do I have one coming out?
It is nowhere in the show notes. The outline you prepared for me.
That's true. I somehow got it's not on there anymore.
Oh,
But,
what do you mean anymore? You put it on there with disappearing ink?
I don't know. But your audiobook this week is called The Jiu-Jitsu Sandwich, How to Splice in Compliments While Tapping Out Somebody. Pretty simple book there, Gary. What do you have for us? What are the meat and potatoes of this audiobook?
Well, first of all, we're going to use potato bread because you're so fond of potatoes. We're going to use potato bread as our outside of the sandwich. But what was the name of it again, Byron?
The Jiu-Jitsu Sandwich, the meat and potatoes of grappling. I don't know anymore, Gary. I just made it up at the top of my
I thought you said it was something about how to give compliments while tapping out.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to check. Since I'm going to write it, I need to know exactly what it is about.
And that's one lesson people can learn. Anytime you're going to write a book, write the title first, and then write the book.
It is kind of important. But, it is important. I mean, we talk about what's our number one goal here, to grow jiu-jitsu.
Sandwiches.
What's the number one reason people quit? Because
Sandwiches.
They don't like to lose. No, okay. Byron, it's not sandwiches. It's they do not like to lose. So we're going to teach you the art of destroying a lower level partner, but making the guy feel good about it. And I mean, there's different ways. Compliments are only one of the ways. And we're going to start out focusing on compliments. Like each time, we tap you out. And it could be, we tap you out every 30 seconds. I mean, it could be very fast tap outs. So depending on how long the rounds are going to be, you need to do your homework before you get on the mat with somebody and shake their hand, especially if you're really, that much higher in skill level. You need to figure out about how many times you're going to tap that person out. And then you need to remember all your different compliments that you're going to use. I mean, there's some of them like, man, that was a great escape. Too bad it didn't work. That one works really well. People like that. Hey, I would have never choked you unconscious if your neck didn't come first. So, different things like that is going to make a big difference. You learn how not to just tap people out, but how to make them feel good about getting tapped out. Man, I've never seen anybody tap like that before. Do you work out? That's always good.
I didn't think it would be so easy to tap out somebody with such big muscular arms like you. I mean, how's that one, Gary?
Yeah, well, you've already read the book. You've seen that one. It's man, I did not think I could choke a person who has no neck because your neck is so muscular. That's always a good one. Yeah.
I thought your double chin would block my choke better, but turns out not so much.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is just plain mean.
Byron, I don't know if that one, really would
that's
help.
All meat. That's all meat and potatoes. There's no potato bread on that one. That's just
you need to put some fillings in that one.
You need to be nice about it, is what we're saying here. So.
Yeah, you need to be nice about it, and it's don't just tap them out, help them up, and then tap them out again. So it works both ways because you're going to get great practice tapping people out. Plus, you're going to have to use your brain because you're going to have to think of a compliment, after you've tapped that person out. And, it makes It makes your brain and your body work at the same time. And the person getting tapped out is probably going to stick with the sport a little bit longer because of all the good compliments you're giving that person. People like to people like to hear that they look like they work out, that they're really muscular. Like, hey, I never thought myself at 140 pounds could tap out a 275-pound muscle head like yourself. Like, there's a very good compliment. You like that one?
That was nice.
Yeah.
You're very good at...
One I used the other day to a big guy was, I never thought I could tap out a guy with cankles to an ankle lock. How's that one?
That's good. How's this one? Garrett, you're very good about being a jerk. With your compliments. I mean, you're doing a great. You're very good at that, right?
You don't get it, Byron. That's incorrect.
That's a compliment. You're good at
that. That one wasn't very good. But the good thing is, we can get you better.
Okay.
I mean, you can buy the audiobook.
How much?
Or you can schedule me for privates, Byron. I would prefer privates because I get more money that way.
Can I pay you in sandwiches?
Byron, what is you with sandwiches? What is up with this?
I don't know. It's the jiu-jitsu sandwich.
Byron.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to ask our Patreon supporters to kick in some extra money so I can put you in a mental academy. See, that was a compliment. That was a compliment.
Good sandwiches there.
Yeah. There we go, Byron. I think we should get on to the next part of the show.
Okay, thank goodness, because I'm tanking this one. Next week, my friend.
You know what I think's wrong, Byron?
Yes.
Your blood sugar's low from no sandwiches.
Peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter jelly time. But next week, don't worry. We've got a great episode coming up. Episode 184. We have the speed of your jiu-jitsu. That's right. Last episode of the month, just Gary and I, we're going to be talking about speed. There are a lot of elements to jiu-jitsu. Speed is one of them. Whether you're slow or you're fast, or maybe you need to slow things down on your end, maybe you want to slow the other guy down or gal down. And advantages and disadvantages of going fast or slow. Lots of different things. Not talking too fast like I usually do. And yeah, Gary, we're going to be talking about speed. So heads up for next week, Gary. Get ready for those.
Yes, definitely. Hey, and also, too, if you happen to come through Wichita, Kansas, middle of the United States, send us a message, bjjbrick@gmail.com. We'd love to get on the mats and roll with you. And maybe afterwards, Byron could take you to get a sandwich.
Yes! That sounds outstanding. As always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
And then get a sandwich.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
I'll go for sweeps to get on top.
All right. Well, let me try that one again. I just mumbled instead of asked something.